They told her she'd feel lighter. They told her the pain would fade. What they didn't tell her is that without pain, there's no gravity. And without gravity, nothing keeps you from floating away. It was raining, but the sound didn't reach her ears. Nora stood still in the middle of the reception hall, staring at the frosted glass door ahead of her. Etched in gold, in smooth, almost friendly lettering, it read, "The Memory Lab, Emotional Restoration, Identity Relief, Personalized Deletion Packages." She'd been here once before, not as a patient, just a tour, just a visit, just curiosity, she had told herself. But now, she was here for real. The air was too still inside. No music, no hum of ventilation, no life. Only a distant ticking clock and the slow, synchronized footsteps of someone coming down the hallway. A woman in white approached her. Clean suit, neutral smile. "Miss Cavell?" the woman asked gently. Nora nodded. "Would you like the pain gone now?" The question hung in the air like fog. Not, "Are you ready?" or "Are you sure?" Just, "Would you like the pain gone?" Nora didn't speak. She simply signed her name. The room they brought her to was all white. A chair, a monitor, and a screen that curved gently around her head like a halo. "Target memory?" the technician asked. Nora's voice was barely a whisper. "My husband, ex-husband, James Cavell." She hesitated. The technician nodded without asking more. "Would you like full deletion or emotional softening?" Nora blinked. "What's the difference?" Full deletion means he never existed. Softening means the memories remain, but without the emotional weight, like watching someone else's life. Nora breathed in slowly. "Full deletion," she said. The technician tapped keys softly. A whirring hum began behind her. "Please close your eyes. The memory replay will begin in 15 seconds. You may stop it at any time. Once confirmed, it will be permanently removed." Nora closed her eyes. There was a moment of nothing, and then a candlelit kitchen, rain on the window, James's voice reading the newspaper aloud. His laugh, that laugh, the one that used to pull her out of sadness like a rope from a well. And then the shift, the silence, the coffee cups left unwashed, the birthdays he forgot, the goodbye that wasn't even a conversation, just a note, just, "I need someone real, you're too heavy to love." Nora reached to stop the memory, but her hand didn't move. She let it play. The room returned. She opened her eyes. The technician smiled kindly. "He's gone." "From where?" Nora asked. "My mind?" "Your mind, your emotional pathways, and your cognitive recall network. You'll see his face as you might see a stranger's in a crowd. It'll mean nothing, no pain, no weight." Nora nodded, but as she stood to leave, she couldn't remember what her wedding dress looked like, or how her mother smiled at her that day, or what song had played at the reception. On the way out, she passed a mirror. The woman looking back was her. But her name. What was her name again? Was it Nora? Or Nora didn't dream that night. Or if she did, she couldn't remember it. And that was new. She always dreamed. Sometimes it was the ocean. Sometimes it was that empty hallway at the university dorm. Sometimes it was James. But now, just black. Not even silence, just absence. The next morning felt clean, not happy, not sad, just neutral, like beige wallpaper. She made coffee, sat in the chair by the window, and stared outside. No emotion, no thought, just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint drip of last night's rain from the windowsill. But then, around 10:42 a.m., Nora opened the drawer to grab a spoon and paused. Inside, next to the cutlery, was a note, folded neatly, yellowed paper, thick ink, slightly curled edges. She didn't remember writing it. She didn't remember seeing it. She didn't even remember putting it in that drawer. With hesitant fingers, she unfolded it. 5 words. Don't delete the child, too. She froze. What child? She had no children. Never did. No pregnancy, no names, no photos on the fridge, no tiny shoes by the door. Just her and once James. Her hands began to tremble. She checked the envelope again. No signature, no handwriting she recognized. But the paper smelled faintly of lavender. Lavender was her mother's favorite scent. Only she hadn't spoken to her mother in years. Or had she? Something itched at the back of her skull. Not pain, not fear, just a slow, creeping question. What else did I delete? She spent the rest of the day pacing. She searched through every box, every folder, every drawer. No birth certificates, no hospital bracelets, no baby photos, no nothing. She wasn't even sure what she was looking for. But the more she looked, the more she realized something strange. Her apartment was empty. Not physically, the furniture was there, clothes, books, dishes, but emotionally hollow. None of it had weight. At 4:07 p.m., she found the photo album. It was in the closet, behind the winter coats. She hadn't seen it in months, maybe years. Hands shaking, she opened it. First page, her as a baby. Second page, birthday party, age 6. Third page, university graduation. Fourth page, the photo was torn. Only half of her face remained. The other half, gone. Someone else had been there. A face cut out cleanly with scissors. Underneath, written in pen, "Do not reattach. Trauma link confirmed." Nora stepped back. Her ears were ringing. This wasn't right. No clinic should have access to physical memories, right? She grabbed the album, ran to the kitchen, and sat down under the light. Page after page, each image more incomplete than the last. Some had scratches over her eyes. Some had text blurred into smears. One photo was entirely black, with a note taped to it. "This moment has been removed for your safety. Thank you for choosing the memory lab." Nora leaned back, clutching the album to her chest. Her breathing was shallow. Tears rolled down, but she didn't know why. Was she sad? Or just glitching? And then the phone rang. Blocked number. She answered. Silence. Then her own voice. "I hope this reaches the right version of me. If you're hearing this, don't go back to the lab. They lied." Click. Line dead. The voicemail stayed in her head for hours. Not the words, those were already fading, but the tone, the rhythm of her own voice. It hadn't sounded like her, not fully. There was something off, slightly higher pitch, a pause between syllables, like someone imitating her and almost getting it right. She tried calling the number back, blocked, unreachable. She turned off her phone, then turned it back on. Still no trace. That night she didn't sleep. She just sat in the hallway, with the lights off, facing the mirror. It wasn't a special mirror, just a tall rectangle leaning against the wall, one she'd bought at a flea market 5 years ago. She remembered picking it because of the frame, carved wood, chipped in one corner, shaped like vines crawling upward. But now, something about it felt wrong. The hallway was dark, except for the faint glow of the kitchen light. And in that dim light, the mirror didn't reflect correctly. It showed the hallway, yes, her outline, yes, but it was too clean, too crisp. The shadows were reversed. The light hit the wrong side of her face. She blinked. Her reflection didn't. Nora stood up slowly. The reflection stood too, but half a second late. She moved her hand. The reflection followed, just a little too slowly, a half step behind, watching, not echoing. She stepped forward. So did the image, not mirrored, not reversed, just walking toward her. Her heart stopped. The reflection raised its hand and pressed it against the glass. So did she, but their hands didn't align. The reflection's fingers were longer, sharper, the nails slightly cracked. There was a scar on its wrist that Nora didn't have. It wasn't her. It was another version, and it was smiling. Nora stumbled back, tripping over the hallway rug, crashing against the wall. The mirror stayed still, the figure inside unmoving now, hand still raised, that scar still visible, that grin frozen. She looked around, gasping for breath. When she looked back, it was just her reflection again. Her breathing, her eyes, her hands. But the scar, it was still there, on her wrist, and she didn't know where it came from. She didn't leave the apartment for 2 days. The scar didn't fade. She tried covering it with makeup, then a bandage. But every time she looked away from it, it seemed to change, slightly longer, slightly redder, like it was still healing from a wound that never happened. On the morning of the third day, her doorbell rang. She hadn't ordered anything. No visitors, no friends, no deliveries. She waited. Silence. Then, a knock. 3 slow, spaced knocks. 1, 2, 3. She opened the door. There was no one outside. Just a plain envelope on the floor. White. Unmarked. Heavy. She picked it up and brought it inside. Her hands were trembling now. The kitchen light flickered overhead as she slid a finger under the flap and pulled the paper free. There were 2 items inside: a photo and a form. The photo showed a woman, her age, her build, her eyes, but not her. She had shorter hair, different teeth, a slightly crooked nose, but the smile, it was the same. Exactly the same smile Nora had in her graduation photos. The smile she hadn't used in years. The form was more disturbing. It read, "Replacement request received. Subject number 42B. Original identity deemed unstable. Memory gaps increasing. Emotional inconsistencies detected. Preparing replacement for full integration. Status, transfer in progress." There was a signature at the bottom. Not hers, but it was her name, Nora Calvell. And underneath it, a handwritten line. "I'm sorry. I thought this version would survive longer." Her breath caught in her throat. Her vision blurred. This wasn't just memory deletion. This was something else. She wasn't just erasing pain. She was being erased. That night, the lights wouldn't stay on. Every time she walked into a room, the bulbs buzzed once, then faded. She unplugged the lamps, reset the breaker. Nothing helped. At 2:17 a.m., the TV turned on by itself. Static. Then video. Low-resolution footage. A woman in a white room sitting in the same chair Nora had sat at the lab. The woman was crying. Behind her, on the wall, was a mirror. And in that mirror was Nora, watching and smiling. Cold, internalized fear. No panic, just deep disorientation, like falling into your own mind with no bottom. She stopped speaking out loud after the video. Something in her shifted, a quiet suspicion. Like maybe if she didn't speak, nothing else could be taken. But the silence wasn't silent anymore. Every time she passed the hallway mirror, she could hear something, barely audible, like a voice underwater. Not words, not yet, just pressure. A vibration in her bones, a hum under her ribs. And at night, the silence echoed. Not in the apartment, not in the building, inside her own head. She would lie still in bed and listen. And from somewhere behind her ears, behind her thoughts, something would repeat her name. Nora. 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 Except it wasn't her voice. It was thinner, colder, like a recording of herself played just a few milliseconds too slow. The lab had told her she'd experience minor phantom traces, a technical term for leftover emotional signals after deletion. But this wasn't phantom. It was presence. It was real. By the end of the week, she stopped using her voice entirely. Even thinking words too clearly seemed dangerous. She moved slower, ate less, blinked less. The scar on her wrist had grown darker, now nearly black, pulsing faintly under her skin like something trying to breathe. And then, one morning, she woke up to find writing on her bathroom mirror. Fogged letters, fresh, not there the night before. It read, "You shouldn't have ignored the child." She backed away from the mirror, her chest tight, her lungs refusing to fill. She hadn't written it, she was sure. But the handwriting was identical to hers. She erased it with a towel, went to work, tried to pretend. Except, she didn't remember what her job was, didn't remember the name of her company, didn't remember how long she had worked there. When she arrived at the building she thought she belonged to, the security guard looked her blankly. "There's no one by that name here, ma'am." She insisted, showed her ID. He held it under the light. "This isn't real," he said, handing it back. "This isn't even laminated." She looked down, and the ID had already faded in her hand, letters vanishing like ink in water. She ran. The streets were too bright, the world too loud. She made it home just after dusk, locked every door, unplugged every device, and then, behind her, in the hallway, she heard it. Her own voice, clear, loud, confident, speaking from the mirror. "This version is unstable. Preparing for re-entry. Opening echo room for overwrite." Nora turned slowly. The mirror was black, not reflective, just absorbing, like it was waiting for her, breathing, smiling. She didn't sleep that night, not because of the voice, not even because of the mirror, but because she realized something much worse. She didn't know what day it was. Not just the date, the day. Monday, Thursday, morning, evening. The clocks in her apartment blinked 0000, all of them. Her phone was dead, but when she plugged it in, the screen showed a black background with one line of text. Access revoked. No signal, no time, no apps. Just that. She dressed herself slowly, deliberately. Jeans, sweater, scarf, like wrapping layers around a body that didn't feel hers anymore. The elevator mirror looked normal this time. Too normal. She avoided her own eyes. Outside, the city looked the same, but it felt slightly off. Fewer people, no pigeons, the wind blew without sound, and no one looked at her. Not a single person, as if she wasn't real enough to notice, as if something in her had already been archived. She took the tram 5 stops to the old part of town. No destination, just movement, just momentum. Her legs moved because staying still felt like dying. Then she saw it. On a faded concrete wall under an abandoned railway bridge, someone had spray-painted, "We don't forget what they erase." She stopped, stared. And then, to the left of that phrase, a symbol. It looked like an eye inside a triangle, but distorted, one edge broken, dripping. Underneath, a small line of text in red ink. Archive room, sublevel 3. Ask for Janet. Her heart beat once, sharply. She didn't remember ever being to sublevel 3, but she remembered that name. Janet. Somewhere deep in her, beyond deletion, beyond suppression, that name echoed like a bell. She didn't take the tram back. She walked. Past the lab's reception, past the glass walls, past the smiling white-dressed attendants. No one stopped her, no one even looked up. She took the elevator, pressed B1, then B2. Then there was no B3. Just a blank panel. She stared at it, and suddenly one more button appeared. No sound, no click, no animation, just a small, red glowing circle. B3. She pressed it. The elevator didn't move, but the light overhead flickered, and the walls went dark. When the doors opened, it wasn't a hallway, it was a tunnel. Fluorescent lights buzzing above her, no signs, just a faint humming like computers breathing. At the end of the tunnel, a door, and a voice behind it, soft, firm, familiar. Password. Nora swallowed. She didn't know it, but her mouth whispered on its own. Echo 6, false 1, override fail. Silence. Then, click. The door opened. Rows and rows of glass capsules, floating memories, visual fragments suspended in fluid, birthdays, accidents, lovers, fights, voices, screams, tears. Each labeled, each time-stamped. She stepped closer to one. It flickered on. James. Laughing, holding someone else. Her. But not this version. Another version. Her hair was longer, her voice higher. She looked happy. The screen blinked. Nora Cavell, version 03A. Emotional state acceptable. Status archived. She looked left. Another capsule. Nora Cavell, version 04B. Emotional state unstable. Status corrupted. Then another. Version 05C, neutralized. Version 06F, deleted. Version 07X, observation. She backed away. Her knees trembled. Then, from behind the rows, a voice, gentle, smiling. Found you. She turned, a woman in white, identical to the receptionist, but older, eyes darker. She extended her hand. You must be the Nora from 09E. We've been looking for you.
She didn't follow the woman in white. Her legs wouldn't move. Her breath stayed caught halfway up her throat. But the woman came closer anyway. Not walking, just appearing closer. Every blink brought her nearer until her hand was inches from Nora's face. You've reached instability threshold, she whispered. We'll begin the fragmentation now. It won't hurt. Nora opened her mouth to scream, but someone else's voice came out. Proceed. The sound was hers, but the intention wasn't. The lights dimmed. The archive capsules flickered out, one by one. Behind her eyes, the world split. Not in half, in layers. First, sound. The hum of the machines. A childhood song. A scream. Then, vision. Memories overlaid across her vision like transparent film strips. Her 5th birthday. A car crash she didn't remember. Her mother's funeral. Her mother's laugh. The kitchen fire that never happened. Then, identity. She felt herself break into pieces. Each emotion stepping outside her. A version of her fear stood in front of her. Then guilt, then love, then confusion. Each one shaped like her, each one staring. She tried to step back, but her body didn't obey, because it wasn't hers anymore. She was watching from above, from behind her own eyes. The woman in white stepped aside, revealing a curved glass screen. On it, a diagram, a 3D model of her mind, each section glowing, each section labeled: voice, stable; motor control, limited; memory center, locked; self, undefined. Then a soft tone played. Fragmentation protocol initiated, beginning cognitive split, preparing consciousness for rebuild. And then a question, spoken in her voice, from inside the machine. Which version would you like to become? She couldn't speak, but the machine answered for her. Selected, version 10A, compliant, emotionally muted, ideal for reintegration. Nora tried to scream again, but the scream got lost somewhere between her mouth and her memory. Inside the screen, the diagram pulsed. Her name faded, replaced by a new one, no one she recognized. And the capsule in front of her now blinked with new text. Subject 10A, upload in progress. From behind the glass, her emotions watched her go and smiled. She didn't feel herself anymore. Only noise, a pale vibration, like falling into light, like drowning in nothing. Then ground, cold, wet. Eyes open, but nothing to see, only fog. She stood slowly. The body wasn't hers, but it allowed her to move for now. No voice came out, but she heard her own breath, and other breaths too. Around her, shapes, still, frozen, left behind. One of them had her old haircut, short, like in school. Another had scars across her neck. Another wore a wedding dress. All of them were her, but all of them were different, and all of them had been discarded. None of them spoke, but their thoughts pressed in like walls. You are the last one. What made you think you would survive? They wrote us, then erased us, and left the body behind. She opened her mouth, but the smallest one, the girl with wet eyes, shook her head slowly. Don't speak. Every word goes to the system. Every clear thought becomes old. Nora backed away. Her feet sank into ground that wasn't soil. It felt like memory, thick, warm, unstable. In the distance, glass capsules, some shattered, some leaking, some whole, and on each a name. Nora Cavell 01A refused deletion. Nora Cavell 02B broke during transfer. Nora Cavell, 05D, died without acceptance. Nora Cavell, 08G, no voice, no mind, just body. She turned. One of them came closer. Her hands were made of shadow, but her face was Nora's. You will be next. Resistance doesn't save you, but maybe you will remember. Remember what? She asked. The answer came without sound. You were never the only Nora. At the far end of the field, a light. Dim, pale, sleepy. They didn't follow. They couldn't. But as she approached it, she felt it. A quiet pull. A system calling all versions back into one final file. A soft death disguised as peace. A screen flickered on. Final memory room. One way only. Do you wish to proceed? She didn't answer, but her hand lifted on its own and pressed yes.
She stepped through the doorway. There was no sound, no welcome, no light. And yet she could see. Not with her eyes exactly. It was as if the room let her remember how it looked. Like the memory of a place she had never been, but always feared. The walls were white, too white, white like teeth, white like forgetting. In the center, a single chair. She didn't sit. The room didn't ask her to. Instead, the walls began to breathe. Not with air, but with images. Her first kiss, the book she never finished, the last conversation she had with her mother, the memory of sitting on a hospital bed, holding her own wrist, bleeding and not crying, the sound of her name being whispered by someone who was never real, every forgotten moment, every deleted file, every lost second. It was all here, and it remembered her. A screen lit up in the wall, plain text, cold, administrative. Subject, Nora Cavell, version 10A. Memory deletion summary, 72%. Emotional stability, fractured. Core identity, collapsing. Status, unrecoverable. Then another line appeared. Would you like to rebuild your identity? She stared. Her lips moved without her permission. Yes, she whispered. The room responded. Which version would you like to become? 01A, emotional. 04C, rational. 05F, fearless. 07B, silent. 09E, passive. Current. 10A, compliant. She shook her head. None. The room paused. Then a final line appeared. You cannot leave unless you choose. The system must remember you as something. The floor pulsed. The air thickened. A mirror slid from the wall. And for the first time, there were 3 Noras inside it. One smiling, one crying, one watching silently. All of them waiting for her to choose. She walked toward the mirror. Each reflection moved on its own. The crying one reached out a hand. The silent one turned away. And the smiling one, she whispered, "If you don't choose, we'll keep doing this again and again, until there's nothing left to forget." Nora placed her hand on the glass. The smiling version leaned in and said, "You've already chosen. You just don't remember."
The room pulsed once more, and everything turned black. There was no sound after she pressed yes. No light, no transition, just a feeling, like letting go of the last thread holding her to something real. And then, a breath. She opened her eyes. She was standing on a street she didn't recognize. It was raining lightly, the kind that doesn't fall but floats. Cars moved slowly, like the world was underwater. People passed her, quiet, disconnected. No one looked at her, not once. She reached into her coat pocket. No phone, no ID, only a key. Brass, old, worn down by time. There was no tag, no address, but her hand closed around it like it had always been there. Across the street, a building, 4 stories, white stone, no signs, just a black door, and a light above it flickering once every 3 seconds. She crossed without thinking. Her feet knew where to go. The key slid in perfectly. Click. The door opened. Inside, a hallway. Wooden floors. Dim lights. Photographs along the walls. Faces blurred, like dreams just before waking. At the end of the hall, a single door, painted deep red. Her hand reached for the knob and stopped because from the other side she could hear someone breathing. Not just someone, herself. But not her now, not 10A, not the compliant version, not the erased, fragmented, reassembled shell the system had chosen. It was another Nora, older, stronger, real. The version that never agreed to forget. She turned to leave, but the hallway behind her was gone. Only the door remained. Only the breath. Only the choice. She turned back and opened it. The room inside was empty, except for a chair, facing a mirror. And in that mirror, her reflection didn't move. It blinked at the wrong time. It tilted its head in a way that wasn't human. Then it smiled. Not cruel, not kind, just certain. And it said, "You made it further than most of us." She stepped inside. The door closed behind her. No one knows what happened after that. Not even the lab. Because that version of Nora never archived, never returned. She simply walked away. And for the first time in the system's history, there was a missing file. One that couldn't be tracked, one that couldn't be traced. A single line appeared in the logs. Subject 10A. Final status unknown. And underneath it, this version remembers. No more voices. No more files. No more versions. Just quiet. The kind that hums softly inside your chest, where names used to live, where memory once fought to hold on. Now, there's only air. Soft, still, uncertain. And that's okay, because sometimes forgetting is survival. Sometimes not remembering means you're finally free. The lab will keep searching, keep rebuilding, keep assigning new names, new faces, new lives. But this one, the one that walked away, it's gone where they can't follow. Somewhere unarchived, untracked, unwritten. And maybe, just maybe, that's where you are now too. Not a number, not a version, just breath, just quiet, just you.